Aster, the world's top fix-it guy, is currently holding his former boss in a magical chokehold. The boss can't believe his top troubleshooter has magic powers that were never supposed to exist. Aster pulls out the book he stole from them and is shocked to find it's a magical grimoire. The manager sneers, "Did you really think we'd chase this far only for a mutt like you?" But when Aster asks how to use the grimoire, the boss admits he has no idea. Aster's mind is racing because she chased this book all the way here, proving it is worth a fortune. The boss wants his grimoire back. He even makes a deal, promising to beg for a lighter punishment for him. Aster just smiled, not realizing his boss held that much power. Right as he is about to finish it, someone new suddenly walks onto the scene. Our boy feels the danger the very second it starts. Yep, things are going really wrong, and they're not even getting better. In the middle of the open space stands a man dressed in a flashy suit, showing off all his power. The new arrival says things smoothly. "Nice to meet you. I am Paharan von Deelen, the head of a mighty family of magic from the Eastern Land." After years of doing the dirty work, he finally gets to see the big boss for the first time. This isn't just any mage. He's the head of the continent's most powerful magic family, the strongest in history. He can't stop wondering who this guy is, so he stares him down and says, "You're really annoying me." "Wait, what now?" The big boss looks shocked, and so do we. They tried to grab my hard-earned prize, and our boy just kept smirking like a brat. Paharan's lips curl into a smile. Then he bursts into laughter, matching his own energy, while Aster laughs right along but is secretly cursing his luck, knowing he's completely doomed. The air around this guy buzzes with power so huge it's the most terrifying thing anyone has ever felt. Paharan finally decides to stop playing around. He says killing Aster would be easy, but he wants a bargain. Give him the grimoire and he will forgive all your crimes. He praises our boy's talent and admits he regrets not seeing how special he was sooner. He can't believe a dirty rat from the slums managed to climb so high. As the head drones on, Aster looks on with boredom. After a long silence, Aster lifts her head and says, "Fine." But when Poichin reaches for the book, she isn't done yet. With a wicked grin, Aster leans in and demands the title of family head before he's ready to talk. You can actually see Pian's veins bulging on his temple. Then Aster's fist bursts with glowing power. He blasts a wave of magic that makes the manager behind him scream in pain. He flashes a smug grin and asks, "Do you know my signature move?" Right as he knocks out the poor manager. Paharan's face finally turns dark as he drops the act and warns Aster in a cold voice, "You could die here," causing Aster to gulp nervously in agreement. With a wild grin and a fierce roar, he declares it's time to strike and blasts a storm of blue magic. He dares the most powerful mage to test his own skills, while Paharan watches without a care. He lifts his hand, and a glowing circle of magic appears in the air. Suddenly, huge red spikes shoot up from the ground and rush right at our boy. Paharan just watches quietly while his carefree world-ending strike plays out. Aster stares in horror, muttering "crazy" at the massive display of power unfolding before him. The hero gets knocked backward by the huge power of Paharan's spell. He manages to get back on his feet, but he knows the strength facing him is too great. He tries to push them apart, but he keeps hitting an invisible wall. Paharan laughs at him and says, "You said you wanted to measure the gap between us. There are some things that never need to be tested, just like the wide gap between us." Our boy's eyes go wide with shock just as a giant fireball crashes down and boom, the whole place blows up. Once the smoke fades, Paharan leans over the crater and asks if his hero has changed his mind from the rubble, only for the hero to look up and ask if he should surrender now and return to Decal's shadow. Paharan gives a small, knowing smile and asks, "Would you?" Suddenly, his power surges back, and with a blood-soaked, wild grin, he screams like he's in hell. He fires off another wild bolt of lightning while screaming, "I'm tired of being treated like a dog." He shouts that no matter how fancy his collar is or how big his kennel, he is still just a dog. Paharan just calls him a fool. He answers by waving a hand and summoning a giant red magic circle so huge it covers the whole land. Paharan speaks in a calm voice, "Behold my overwhelming power," and then a brilliant flash of lightning explodes across the sky. For a quiet second, Aster stares in wonder as a wyvern soars freely through the sky. But just seconds later, he snaps back to reality, coughing up blood. "Impressive," Paharan's voice rang out. "I thought you were dead, but here you stand. Do you feel the power shifting between us now?" Paharan asks. Our hero admits defeat, muttering that you are disgustingly strong, while Paharan presses on, asking if you are finally ready to talk properly. "You want me to be a troubleshooter again?" he asks, but Paharan corrects him, noting that I meant becoming a vassal family head. Aster's eyes popped wide open in pure shock. He stares in shock, realizing this incredible chance to join the most powerful family on the continent is right in front of him. Holding the grimoire tight, he asks if that's how much he really wants it, but Paharan just smiles and says she wants him because the book is only secondary. Two men stand face to face in a lonely wasteland, waiting for a life-changing offer to drop. Aster grabs the old book, and Paharan chuckles as he reaches out. But the moment he gets close, the book explodes in a wild burst of purple fire. Paharan's face darkens instantly as he shouts, "What are you doing?" and throws the ashes back, saying, "Here, take it." As Paharan glares, the troubleshooter cuts him off with a command to shut up and listen, showing that they don't care about money. "So why didn't I take this for myself, since it's so precious to you?" He finally shows you why he did it, asking if you still remember the troubleshooters your heir killed. "That treacherous beast ate my friends, and you hid the whole truth." Paharan wonders if everything is just about revenge, but our boy just laughs, saying why bother when even mutts know their lives are cheap. He drifted away in thought, realizing that making his dream come true meant spending money and never going back to the kennel once he retired. Paharan heard enough, snapped his fingers, and unleashed his final attack. The Azure Flame, the most powerful weapon of the Declan family. Sink deep in regret for the choice you made. Wrapped in blue fire, our hero laughs at the thought of feeling sorry. He'd rather take his own life than ever become Declan's pet dog again. Instead of screaming in pain, he lets out a dark laugh. For the first time in years, he finally felt free. He might not have broken free while he was alive, but he leaves with no regrets and a single dream. To be reborn, take true freedom and get his vengeance. Wait a minute, something just went down. He glances around, completely lost and unsure of what's happening. Paharan and everything around him are stuck in a frozen state. Did the grimoire pull this off? The book leaps into the air, its pages fluttering wildly as it melts away into pure energy. Suddenly, that power rushes into his chest, painting a bright golden circle right over his beating heart. He stares down in disbelief, totally lost, but we all know exactly what happens next. Clink. One coin lands in his ragged bowl. But wait a minute. Wasn't he just burning up before now he's sitting on a street corner asking for spare change? He's sweating and glancing around the medieval town, sensing that something is terribly wrong. He looks down at his hands and the sad little pile of coins, feeling like he's been here before. And then it hits him like a lightning bolt. Wait, he knows this place? Is he having déjà vu or something? This black and white zone is the slum he clawed his way out of to become a professional troubleshooter. You've got to be kidding. This guy actually went back in time. His mind is flipping like crazy, wondering just what on earth is going on. He wanders over to the muddy river for a quick reality check. Yep, that's him, but look how young he's become. But wait, he had one thing left. Golden magic circles glowing right on his chest. That's the mark left by the grimoire he destroyed, proving that old book is the real bad guy. Can a book really pull that off? Well, the head of the mighty Declan family wanted it so badly, so of course it probably could. But you know what? He just shrugs it off with a confident smile, thinking this might actually be a good thing. This feels too real to be a dream, and the lovely scent of sewage confirms it. He's definitely alive. But feeling like a loser isn't enough. He's suddenly fired up with a fresh reason to win, making today the perfect start to finally getting rich. Genius. But then he stops and wonders if winning big still matters to him. He remembered a dream he once had with all his old comrades, right before the classic flashback hit. That dream was the very reason he decided to move forward, and as another comrade reminded them of their past as poor vagrants with nothing to their names, they realized they had to start over. The man asked what had been the worst about their past, and the guests from Aster answered that it was the starvation. He pushed Aster to ask why their lives were so bad, but Aster just shrugged him off and said he was okay with it. Finally, the man spoke up, admitting that his lack of schooling was the heaviest burden, as it made him an easy target for the nobles. Then he finally shares his big retirement dream of building a library, and Aster chimes in to finish the idea for him. Our guy smiles, remembering a library where anyone could come to read for free, no matter who they were. But his own dream was even bigger, and he wanted to beat him by building a tower. Why build a tower? Well, he just loves tall things, and seriously, he'd pack it with every book in the world. But one book was absolutely non-negotiable. The Declan family's secret manual, sitting right at the entrance for all to see. He dreams of mass-producing their amazing tricks and slapping the Declan family crest right on the cover. He's so eager he's practically drooling. But the real question is how he'll ever get it. He shrugs and says that's a problem for his future self to worry about, but for now he's just going to have fun imagining how the whole Declan family would freak out, even though he's just being a bit of a petty guy. Suddenly, a foot hits him in the face and sends him flying across the ground. A kid with white hair starts kicking him, shouting that he's been looking for him. The kid keeps kicking back, furious that our guy wasn't where he should have been, yelling, "You want to die? What's happening here?" Even as he gets stomped, he just grins because as a former troubleshooter, he's ready for this and has lived through worse. In an instant, he grabs the attacker's boot right in the middle of its kick, leaving the kid stunned on the ground and glaring up with burning eyes while shouting, "You blocked that? I hit you 7 times, but now I'll hit you back 70. The attacker's face turns pale as he realizes he's in way over his head. True to his promise, he lands a fast and hard punch right on the attacker's jaw. Crack. But instead of breaking the attacker's jaw, our hero's own fist took a hit, and honestly, that was pretty embarrassing. Now the attacker is so mad that he's ready to fight back. "You little punk. How could you hit your own brother?" The punch sends our boy crashing to the ground while the attackers keep screaming about age like it's a rule they can't break. He sits with a hurting body, but his pride hurts far worse. Then a tiny rock comes along and saves our boy's pride. The current sweeps the attacker's legs out from under him and splashes him right into the murky pond. The attacker coughs, scrambles up, and bolts while screaming, "You little brat, where do you think you're going?" Our hero thinks, "I'm not running. It's a tactical retreat," and vows to remember the 57 hits he took, even though he's a seasoned troubleshooter who never gives up, right? Then, just as quickly, he falls to the ground in a grimy alley, and suddenly things look really bad. He stares at his swollen hand, knowing one punch already broke his wrist and proving this new body is a total failure. He collapses in funny despair, realizing that building a tower isn't the problem. He first has to fix his broken body. Suddenly, a voice chimes in, "Are you hungry?" As a boy with white hair and bright red eyes stands right over you. Aster wondered if they knew each other, but the new boy just shrugged and said, "Nope," while Aster thought, "Yeah, I figured it," as he took a good look at the strange newcomer. The kid's ragged clothes hide a rich past, marking him as a fallen noble who's now a ticking time bomb that we're lucky to have figured out.
"Hey, kid, I'm Damian."
"My mom, Bianca," tells the boy. Our guy is wondering why he's learning things he shouldn't know, before asking if Damon is a little slow. Damien puts a finger to his lips, and I realize I don't have a mom. Aster shoots back that he doesn't have a dad either, so he wins, and asks if this is the Orphan Olympics. He asks if Damon is leaving, but the kid declares, "I'm coming with you," which makes our hero grit his teeth so hard he almost wants to smack him for saying that. Then Damon shows his hand and says, "I'll make it better." Out of nowhere, a bright green ring of magic flickers into existence. He holds out a healing hand with a wide, innocent smile. Our guy just stands frozen in pure shock. That isn't just ordinary healing magic. It is the light of healing, a hidden technique from the fallen noble house of Blando, which was destroyed by the Dylan family. His gut tells him he's walked straight into a mess that's way too dangerous to ignore. Why is a Blando kid here when his family should still be doing just fine? He stares at the glowing hand and whispers the name Damien. Suddenly, a brilliant idea strikes Aster, knocking the wind right out of her sails. "Oh no," he whispered. His wide eyes filled with horror as the memory returned. "A person from the Blando bloodline with 2 different colored eyes? You've got to be kidding me. That's the monster of Blando. Damon von Blando is a truly insane man who just won't die, no matter how many times you try to kill him. And this legendary monster is crouched on the ground, happily watching the ants. Our hero just stares, unable to see the truth. The legendary monster is actually that kid, and you have got to be kidding. Suddenly, Aster's mind glitches and he's ripped back into his past as a troubleshooter. He and his crew were sent to the Blando land on a mission, but they weren't sure why they were even needed. It turns out there were rumors about a monster in the Blando family that had already killed dozens of people. Aster isn't convinced that a scary giant like an ogre is really the culprit. And then he finally saw it. Yeah, that was definitely not an ogre. It was a man who tore someone in half with his bare hands while laughing like a madman and healing himself with spells, totally out of his mind. This was the infamous monster of the Blando family, a crazy butcher who just wouldn't die, Damien von Blando. And now the very monster he feared is sitting right in front of him, a little kid laughing at tiny ants. Aster can't believe his eyes, thinking this has to be some twisted joke. His mind was racing, wondering why the proud Blando family would be hiding in an alley. Suddenly, Damon jumps up and calls for food, which snaps Aster right out of his thoughts. Damon says with a huge grin, "Let's eat. My mom insists we fuel our bodies well, so we stay healthy." "You're right," but Aster gets straight to the point. "Do you have any cash on you?" "This?" Damien asks while holding up a tiny pot that's so full of bright gold coins it's practically spilling over. After a stunned silence, Aster places a hand on the boy's shoulder, while Damien flashes his most cheesy smile and gives a thumbs up to signal that they are finally friends, a friendship born from the same old reason. He puts his arm around the kid, declaring that friends share their treasure, and so we are friends. After a moment of confusion, Damon's face brightens and he says, "Friend, let's go get some food." But then Damien throws a deep question at him. "Friend, what have you got?" Aster gazes at the sky like a wise old master, while I just have a friend. Damien is totally convinced by it. Wow, that's truly deep. A short time after the huge feast, Aster lets out a loud, happy burp. Man, that was a good meal. He sighs as he rubs his very full stomach, knowing nothing beats a good wash afterwards. He sees Damien staring around their new room with wide, curious eyes, asking, "What are you doing?" Damien says he never knew houses existed on top of restaurants, but I always slept outside, making this my very first time. Then Damien's face turns stone cold, and I remember that I don't have a father either. Aster calmly says, "Yeah, you do," which makes Damon snap back, "No, I don't." And before Aster can get a headache from the argument, he asks about Damon's mom, who is nowhere to be found in the empty room, leading Aster to facepalm and try a new question about how long Damon has been alone, only to hear him count 10 sleeps, leaving Aster wondering if he's really been away for 10 days. Damien holds a finger to his lips and whispers, "I take a lot of naps too." He beams with a huge grin and says he gets to sleep twice a day, meaning 10 naps in total. Damien flops onto the bed, staring at the ceiling while muttering that his kid's logic is so weird it feels like it's from another planet. Aster just stares at nothing for a moment, totally confused. Then he snatched up his pillow and let out a scream into it, pouring all his frustration into the fabric. He lifts his head in total defeat, muttering that this kid is crazy. But then a new idea suddenly pops into his mind. By stepping in as their caretaker, he could forge a strong bond with the Blando family, gaining a powerful edge against Declan, while unlocking the secret techniques hidden in the noble's vast libraries. But first, he has a very old anger he needs to settle. Aster warns Damien to stop by if he wants to avoid trouble, showing just how serious she is about her rest. Damon steps right up to your face, looking like you're trying to do breathing exercises, which is making him laugh. Aster nods and says, "I'll do that," then closes his eyes to concentrate. In his former life, he survived only by stealing magic from noble families to grow stronger, risking his life over and over again. The secret arts he managed to learn were just a random mix of whatever he stumbled upon. His body was just a shield. His spirit arts and summons were just tools he grabbed whenever he could find them. But none of that mattered when he finally had to face the ultimate boss. The Heron's power was so wild it felt like a disaster. So this time he's got a totally new plan. He is set to master Deculin's hidden secret, the Heaven's Source Art. It's the source of their magic that can match any element, something he studied in his past life so he could finally turn the tables and get his revenge. He starts the breathing trick, and suddenly, a wave of burning heat shoots out from the glowing circle on his chest. It feels like molten rock is pumping through his veins, and he has no idea what is happening. He tells himself to snap out of it and start moving the source art from heaven down here. But something feels off, as blue energy suddenly erupts from his body, revealing impurities that seem out of place. He recalls a hidden strength reserved just for the noble house's own children. They call it the mana shower, a trick that dumps raw magic power into your veins to burn out every last bit of grime. He screams one final time just as the painful cleansing comes to an end. He suddenly jerks awake, gasping for air with no clue how long he's been out. Glancing over, he finds Damien sleeping soundly with a small smile on his face. He stares at his hand, frozen in shock, seeing that his circuits are spotless and his mana is purified, even stronger than it was in his past life. Still, just imagining facing Declan again makes my heart race with fear. Even after all we've done, that monster still feels like something we can't possibly beat. But one thing is certain, his odds of coming out on top have definitely improved. He flashes a confident grin, because he's a tough troubleshooter who never gives up, even when the odds are impossible. Soon enough, Damon jumps up and down with joy because his hair has turned brown and it's amazing. Aster figured that with his hair dyed and clothes changed, the Blando family would never spot him so easily. Damien, wearing a cap, asks his friend what they are up to now, while Aster turns to him with a small smile. "It's time to go bust some heads," he muttered, cracking his neck in the dirty alley after a long nap. He freezes in his tracks upon seeing who is approaching, letting out a confused, "Huh, what on earth?" It's the runt. "Where did you go?" he shouts. "And what about the way you're dressed? Did you take a bath in the sewer?" He sneers at Aster's new clothes, only for Aster to punch him in the gut before he can finish speaking. As the guy crashes to the ground, Aster thinks, "Yep, right place. The fact that I remember your face is all I need." And his fist flares with a faint red glow before he strikes first. Two more guys dash into the alley, confused by the loud noise. They stumble upon a massive crowd of friends all glued to Aster. Aster gives the group of thugs a creepy smile. As Damien pops up behind him, Aster wonders how strong he's become, while Damien, totally misunderstanding, gets excited and asks, "Are we playing now?" As soon as his mana returns, Aster strikes with a brutal 2-hit combo. All boom, and he knocks the first thug flying into next week. He turns into an unstoppable storm of violence, casually beating up the whole crew while Damon watches like it's a fireworks show. Damien is totally blown away, thinking, "Whoa, he's wrapping his fists in magic and punching faster than anything I've ever seen." Aster grabs a bully to show him who's boss, and Damien thinks it is absolutely awesome. And just like that, a brand new word lights up in Damien's small mind, which is absolutely awesome. Damien spots a guy knocked out, so his heart softens and he steps in to help. He jokes, "It won't hurt. I'll heal you." But before he can thank Aster, the demon grins and yanks him up, leaving him wondering how many hits that actually took. After the screaming finally stops, Aster keeps fighting by kicking another bad guy in the alley. He asks how far the terrified thug counted before stuttering in fear and admitting he forgot. Damien, who was having the time of his life, asks Aster, "Wah, my turn." And there it is, my friends. Damien happily heals everyone, Aster just grins, and suddenly we're back in the endless combo loop with 20 more lives to spend. Under the bright moonlight, a thoroughly disciplined gang of thugs stands in perfect rows like graduation day boot camp, while a poor guy screams in terror, "Stop, you demons! I can't even count past 2 digits, and that's the least of your problems right now." Aster beams with smug satisfaction and says, "Good spirit," while silently marveling that he's landed over 1,000 hits on 2,000 targets. A feat so petty even a pro like him has never seen before, prompting one of the terrified thugs to nervously ask, "Can we go now? We think we've taken enough hits." Aster gives a casual nod, but the thug must interrupt to remind us that this is actually our house. When he realizes Aster thinks they must leave the house, the guy panics and shouts, "Leave? No, we'll be the ones leaving." But the thugs quickly flee their own turf while Aster just watches them go. He understands that now it's no longer just about revenge. This whole mess is a real problem. Suddenly, he feels a presence moving closer. Something fast and quiet just showed up, proving another troubleshooter is here. It has to be the ones chasing us, but Damien, our sweet summer child, just turns around and waves hello. Aster sits deep in thought, worried that the Blando family hunted me down too quickly, leaving him almost drained of mana and unable to fight. But hey, he's been through just like this his whole life, so this is just another Tuesday for our boy. He squeezes every bit of his magic left into one last powerful move. He pours all his strength into the glowing mark on his chest, knowing it's all he has left. Boom! He casts the spell, sending up a blinding pillar of light that leaves him completely spent and forced to his knees. But from the light, a man in a fancy suit appears, shouting, "Young master, wait!" Damien is stunned. "Alfred," the butler rushes over, grabbing him. "Young master, where have you been? I couldn't sleep a wink." Damien struggles, yelling, "Let go. I'm never going back." But Alfred just clings to him, crying, "You'll have to kill me first." And it finally dawns on Aster that Damon's big escape was just a kid running away from home. Alfred offers his apologies for the mess before lifting Damien up like a heavy sack of potatoes. The man introduces himself as the Blando family's butler, and our boy replies, "Ah, I'm Aster." Alfred smiles and invites us to the noble Blando household, noting that Damien likes us, which makes Aster suspicious until he remembers he's been hoping to meet that famous family anyway. After all, they hold the keys to Hazen, the city where the Zenian Academy and its wild library sit. Since our boy wants to build the ultimate library himself, we can't miss visiting the best one in the world, which Aster says he'd be honored to join. He thinks the detour is small and doesn't mind it, so he puts on his shirt and asks, "Should we check out Blando's food?" Later, their carriage stops at a huge walled house, and Aster steps out to look around. This is his very first time stepping into the ridiculously huge Blando manor. Alfred tells his friends to rest, calls for a maid, and hands things over to Lancey. Oh boy, she looks strict. And yep, that made Lance sternly tell Damon it's time to go. Damien looked up at her with a totally flustered expression on his face. He apologizes, and then a scream rings out from the big house, because Lance must have found out about his little adventure. Meanwhile, inside a cavernous starlit hall, alone Alfred walks alone. He pounded on the big heavy door and was told to come inside. He walks into a fancy office to tell Damien's mom what happened while she sits at her desk. Her reaction isn't calm at all. She smashes her fist down and blasts a huge burst of magic. She is so angry she's screaming that if even one hair on her son's head is touched. But Alfred, the absolute professional, just closes his eyes and calmly asks her to listen to his full report. She takes a breath, sits back down, and lets her magic fade with a sigh of relief, proving that her dramatic mood swings are truly something else. Alfred thinks to himself how lucky everyone is that things didn't get out of hand, since who could possibly survive her anger? It turns out the woman with the scary temper used to be known as the terrifying Blood Witch. Now that her anger is safely tucked away, she gives Alfred a warm smile and says, "You've done great." He bows and says it is his duty, but then adds there is something unusual to report, telling her all about the new friend Aster, a boy Damon has made. Alfred says the kid spotted his sneaky move and already had a magic bullet ready to fire. The Blood Witch finds a slum kid with such amazing talent very strange and curious. And that's exactly why Alfred has a special request for her. The next morning, Alfred stages a wild scene to ask Aster to take his place as boss. Aster just stares back, his face a perfect mask of, "What did you just say to me?" Alfred is totally sure he can't turn down this chance to go from a poor street rat to a rich nobleman's butler. Aster just lets out a loud "darn it," which makes Alfred's face crack with laughter. Alfred is so shocked he can't believe it, muttering, "What do you mean, young man? I must have misheard you, Alfred." But that boy thinks the whole idea is just ridiculous. And to make things even more awkward, little Damien pops his head in asking, "Friend, what does darn it mean?" Aster immediately goes into damage control, slapping a hand over the kid's mouth while politely telling Alfred, "Hey, thanks for the job offer, but I'm good." Suddenly, a look of understanding dawns on Alfred's face. He thinks he's cracked the code. I see how it is. He thinks Aster is just an arrogant kid who got lucky and now thinks he's the star, while Damon is still trying to get that tea from him. Alfred snorts to himself, "You think you're so special, huh?" But remembering his own foolish youth, he puffs out his chest and declares, "Boy, the world is vast." Only for Aster to snap him shut with a look that says 1,000 words. Alfred keeps moving right past you without even a glance, while you probably feel like you're about to conquer the whole world. Just like before, Aster shuts him down because that's not how things work, and honestly, it's getting pretty hilarious. Fuming with anger, Alfred sneers at Aster, calling him a foolish little goblin from a tiny hole who has no idea how terrifying the real world is. Aster fires back without even blinking, and I realize that if I grew up in a ravine, I'd probably be a wyvern by now, which makes for quite a comeback. And snap, Alfred's final nerve snaps, but that sound is nothing to you. He stomped his foot so hard the floor cracked, and now this butler is going to show you his amazing power. His face twists into a mask of pure rage as he prepares to show that kid just how big and scary the world really is. Alfred drags Aster into a huge hall and flings the doors wide open just to make a big splash. Inside, a whole squad of trainee butlers stands frozen in eerie unison to welcome their head butler. Alfred points to them with the same proud grin a dad wears at a science fair, saying, "What do you think, boy? They're your age, but they're the very best, and you can feel that, can't you?" Aster looks around and admits that even his awe-inspiring power fills the room. Suddenly, a sneaky grin appears on his face, but look closely at those eyes. He says, "Hey, goblins have been here," leaving everyone feeling embarrassed. Alfred is so thrilled that Aster can see right through his fancy uniform that he is practically begging him again to take the job, promising that as his successor, Aster would be the shiniest of them all and a glitter bomb of talent. But Aster just shakes his head again, leaving me not really into the shine while Alfred is about to pop a blood vessel. Suddenly, a hand shoots up to stop Alfred's rant mid-sentence. A smug trainee named Winster steps forward, and Alfred asks, "Winster, you got something to say?" Winster hints that Aster just said no because he hasn't felt their real power yet. A classic rival moment. And of course, he offers to give Aster that experience himself by sparring with him and showing him a tiny taste of real magic. Alfred mulls it over, feeling a bit proud but thinking it's a solid plan, especially since this old man clearly enjoys all the drama. He turns to Aster with a huge grin and asks what you'd say to a quick spar. Aster's eyes narrow as he finally gets it. Just how they see him. They think he's just a lucky mutt who wandered in, and that harsh remark is sure to sting. Aster asks Alfred if he can pick his opponents, and Alfred, thinking it's easy, just shrugs and says yes. Aster points straight at Winster, and "Isn't that simple enough for you?" He points at the whole group of trainees and says, "You and yeah, all of you too," while they just stare. But I'm ready to take on all 5 of them because my guy is going full beast mode. His eyes burn with a blue glow, and if you're scared, just run away. That's the kind of tough talk a true hero would give. Even Alfred freezes in shock as a bead of sweat rolls down his face, completely caught off guard by what just happened. He throws his head back and lets out a booming laugh. Exactly the kind of leader his successor should be. Alfred warns Aster that this might look like an insult to the whole Blando family, but Aster just smiles with huge confidence and says, "Yeah, I'll take responsibility. without a single second of hesitation. Alfred sets the rules. You have 1 minute to last, and if you do, you get a gift, but if you fail, you'll face the consequences. Aster spots the trap instantly, realizing the old man is just trying to turn him into a servant. Yet he accepts the leash without hesitation. Aster's confidence is sky-high as he steps up to meet the 5 trainees, but Damon's instructor warns Alfred that facing such a broken kid feels dangerously reckless, only for Alfred to grin and say it's fun to break a stubborn horse before riding him. Even as Damien's own guest suffers a full meltdown that could end his career if he gets hurt. He dashes over to Damien, who watches the head butler with intense focus, begging him to stop the attack. But instead of fear, Damien's eyes light up with pure excitement. The instructor facepalms in frustration, and you can almost feel his soul drifting away. Just then, the stern maid named Lance steps in to warn Damon that messing up will get him grounded by his mom, which makes him pout and cross his arms. Alfred yells at the instructor to hurry, and the defeated man gives in. He lets out a huge sigh, admitting that while he didn't want to obey the order, he did his best. Lance just watches him leave, his face a puzzle that leaves you wondering what's going on in his head. Lance tells Damon, "I'll be right back. Don't interfere." And as she walks out to the center of the hall, Damon gives her a super mischievous grin and says, "Yeah, got it. Oh, he's definitely planning something." Standing between Aster and the 5 trainees, the instructor begins to explain the rules, but he stops before he can finish. The guy is sweating so hard he thinks he's about to get executed, but he reminds everyone the fight won't end until one of them gives up. Aster looks down at his opponents with a face as cold as ice. Winster and his butlers just stare back at us with pure hate. Winster is seething inside, calling Aster a nasty stray mutt, and convinced that all the extra attention has gone to Aster's head. He promises to smash him and prove he's nothing, so the instructor yells begin. But before anyone can blink, a brilliant blue light blasts from a trainee's chest and the fight ends instantly. Winster's face was frozen in total shock. He glances around and finds all 5 of his friends lying on the ground, struggling to breathe. Just as one of them looks up, Aster looms right over him with a wicked grin and swirling blue mana, declaring that the first lesson is that small peppers pack the biggest heat. Alfred stares in shock, realizing that this tiny mana bullet is somehow breaking the rules of what he thought was possible. But Aster isn't finished. He introduces the second lesson. Never judge people without thinking. Then he blasts a wild storm of mana bullets that slash through the air like ghosts and burst against the trainees. Boom! The whole courtyard shakes, and Winster's face is frozen in pure shock and pain. Suddenly, Aster vanishes and reappears right in front of another trainee, declaring that the world is vast and bitter before slamming a glowing fist straight into the guy's stomach. With a wild grin, Aster vows to drill these lessons into their heads, calling them magic even as he brutally kicks a trainee to prove that physical pain is just another form of the arcane. And just like that, the dust settles, leaving the trainees wide-eyed and completely speechless. Alfred watches helplessly from the sidelines as his 5 elite trainees, the very best of the bunch, fall unconscious in an instant. My man is crashing hard because he sees the mana bullets, but the power is insane, making me wonder if Aster squeezed them down 3 or even 4 times. He still remembers how Aster handled his wild magic power, watched Damien get utterly crushed, and saw Damien cheerfully fixing everyone up just like a healer in a video game. But his walk down memory lane is suddenly broken by a sharp voice shouting his name. Alfred. Look who's here. The mom of Damien and Lance has just arrived. The saviors arrive, and after seeing the mess, she asks what happened while a sweating Alfred stammers that it was just a test. She repeats the word, test, while staring at the bodies scattered on the ground, realizing it's just a simple checkup that looks exactly like a war zone. Suddenly, her eyes snap up and she sees her son Damien right in the middle of it, pretending to be a doctor. She let out a deep sigh, showing she's finally done with it. She commands the trainee to be rounded up and sent away. Damien and Aster get sent to their rooms like naughty kids, but the little psycho just mutters, "That's a shame. The party's over, my dude." While the instructor gets ordered to run because the madam refuses to listen to his excuses. She drops the 2 coldest words in the business on him, "You're fired," leaving him standing there confused, until later that night Alfred gets summoned to the principal's office for going too far. Alfred tightens his fist, admitting he lost his temper and is ready to face the consequences. But she isn't here to punish him. Instead, she turns and wants to know all the juicy details about Aster's performance, specifically if Damon had to bail him out. Alfred stops and then delivers the most professional opinion possible, saying that Aster was incredibly good at hitting. Look at him, he's totally lost in awe because this kid is throwing such amazing punches. He snaps back to reality and clears things up, revealing that Aster fired another mana bullet, but this one was 3 or 4 times stronger and more tightly packed than before. Basically, Aster's mana control is on a whole other level, and Alfred is still trying to process it. He dropped a mana bullet on each of the 5 men, killing them all at once. A trick even an old master mage would find hard to pull off, proving this kid's power is truly broken. The madam then asks about the job offer, and Alfred has to admit that Aster flat out told him, "No, man didn't stutter." Now that she's truly hooked, it's time to rethink how she sees this kid as her eyes begin to glow, and she commands, "Bring him to me." And so Aster is called to the throne room, where the madam smiles slyly at him while Damon lounges on the couch, happily munching on cookies and looking like a total cutie. Aster glanced around the ridiculously fancy room and said, "I heard you called for me," and he confirmed that she had indeed called her. But before the questioning starts, she slides a box across the table to him. That's the prize Alfred promised for winning the spar, and now the loot box is finally here. Aster remembers the deal. Survive 1 minute to win a prize, but he never expected the final boss to hand out the reward himself. She tells him to open it, and boom, inside is a legendary elixir that's way too rare for anyone but the elite. Aster's alarm bells are ringing wildly, wondering if this amazing gift is a trap or just a very good potion. The madam just smiles and asks if her thanks for helping Damien and her apology for today make him her property. But he keeps worrying if it's poison, and I love how paranoid this kid is. She promises him there's no catch to the free legendary item, so when Aster sees no trap, he grabs the elixir right away. Hey, finding a surprise profit is always a victory. Just as he slips it into his pocket, she drops a surprise by saying she has another idea, and the look on Aster's face tells him exactly what's coming, and he realizes he was right all along. She gently runs her fingers through Damon's hair and hands him his entry pass. She wants to know if he'd be willing to go to the academy with Damien. Aster is stunned to learn that Damon was supposed to go last year but refused, so they put it on hold. She confesses she never imagined her son would run away from home just to skip school. Damon likes him, and the kid is so happy about having his friend to go with that he says yes right away. Aster falls silent, taking a moment to think about this surprising new mission. Aster sees right away that the madam is stuck because if she pushes Damien to leave, he'll just bolt again. She's offering him a bribe to become her son's friend since she has no other way to get him to agree. For Aster, this golden ticket means everything, because he knows that in a world built on connections, attending a fancy school gives him a huge head start. It's a massive chance, yet he can't get the nagging thought out of his head that he's about to walk right into a trap. So he plays it cool with a slight bow, saying he'll think about it, and the madam agrees, telling him to take his time. But she hasn't given up, because she has just one more question left to ask. Why did you refuse Alfred's offer to take his place? Just outside the door, Aster knows Alfred is eavesdropping desperately for the answer, and she realizes she must unlock lore to get it. Aster's face suddenly twisted into a sly grin. He flashes a silly picture of Alfred in his mind, answers with the cheekiest grin ever, and suddenly my knees start to shake because they mean the world to me. The lady just stands there looking totally confused, with question marks swirling around her head as she asks, "What?" While Alfred is having a total meltdown outside the door, it seems like his brain is about to blow up. As Alfred goes crazy in the hallway, Aster stays in his room and drinks the strange potion the madam gave him. He feels his power surging wildly, wondering if his body has just transformed into a flame-marked one. This thing is way better than we expected, giving you pure power with no downsides to worry about. With his power-up done, his mind wanders back to the madam's offer to join the academy, and the answer is crystal clear. He knows that enrolling at the academy would make finding a sponsor much easier and offer some great benefits, yet he still feels like walking right into a trap. He realizes he needs a quick run to clear his mind, so he stands up and heads for the door. Just as he's walking away, a stranger shouts out to ask if his name is Aster. One of the butler trainees leans against the wall. Aster instantly reads him as someone with platinum hair from a branch family, sighs to himself, and wonders why everyone in this house is such a pain. The guy stepped up with all his accusations, challenging you to see if you could ever be him. He points out the ash-gray hair and that slightly unpleasant look in his eyes, noting how nerve-wracking it is. Aster is not having it and deadpans that his hair changes color depending on the light. Then he pulls on the most ridiculously fake innocent face, batting his eyelashes like a cartoon girl, making it impossible not to think those kind eyes are sweet. And the guy immediately buys it, backing away and apologizing, but before he can run, Alfred flies in to grab him and explain that Aster never had to hurt his knees to become a butler, it was all just a huge misunderstanding. Aster finds the whole mess hilarious and lets out a wide, creepy grin, telling the silver-haired man that his boy has gone crazy, which makes the guy look back in absolute terror at the sudden shift in mood. A second later, Aster's face snaps right back into his usual annoyed scowl. And just like that, he knows he's been tricked by those unlucky dead goblin eyes, and he shouts, "I knew it was you!" He spins around to face Alfred with pure anger. Don't fret. I've got this under control. He glares back at Aster before telling him to meet him later at the magic hall, where he's going to fix that rotten attitude of his. Alfred is totally lost, but Aster just shrugs it off like it's no big deal. This was perfect because he was in a terrible mood and needed someone to take his anger out on anyway. He thinks he'll deal with him later as the trainee stomps down the hall like a toddler. With his schedule finally free, Aster asks the head butler to see the madam, and a short time later, he finds himself in her study. She looks up with a happy smile and asks if his early arrival means he's already decided. Yes, madam, he answers straight up, standing tall. I'll sign up for the academy. She glances at him with a bit of surprise. Then her face relaxes into a warm smile. Someone just got the warm fuzzies, she says. Good. We'll start getting ready soon. Aster says thank you and then immediately walks away. The second the door clicks shut, Alfred pops his head inside to tell them the good news. Madam, he is practically beaming with joy now that he has agreed to your offer. Alfred buzzes with excitement, proving that youthful passion really does burn bright in his eyes. He points with great flair and reveals his grand plan, but now he wonders how to handle the second semester. He pictures Aster drowning in worry over the huge tuition bill, desperate to keep his studies going. Just then, a ridiculously muscular, heavenly version of Alfred drops down from the sky to make a grand sponsorship offer for me. Alfred, and honestly, it's just too much. The madam shuts him down coldly, saying, Alfred, you're being far too noisy. He rushes to the kitchen, totally embarrassed, while the madam just looks fed up with his silly behavior. She closes her eyes and thinks to herself, finally understanding why Alfred is so thrilled to have a successor at last. She sees right through his clumsy plan, even though it's not that bad for him. He's so sure of himself only because he's already been tricked by the last head butler in exactly the same way. Alfred, with no clue at all, is dancing happily outside in a little victory dance. While everyone else is bustling around, Aster strolls down the grand staircase with a look that says, I'm totally chill. He is marching right toward the magic hall where that annoying trainee is waiting to get beaten up. He throws open the heavy doors, fully prepared for whatever attitude adjustment they have planned. As they step inside, a shady stranger greets them, but when asked who they're there for, Aster freezes. He doesn't even know the name, yet this creepy guide was clearly expecting him, grinning like a villain as he says he's been waiting and tells Aster to follow him. He guides Aster down a shadowy corridor, pauses before a huge door, and points the way inside. Right before he walks away, he whispers a confusing warning to keep an eye on your head. Aster slowly pushes the door open and instantly gets pelted with a flying storm of paper right in his face. He clenched his jaw in anger, realizing the warning had been a cheap trick. A voice welcomes him, and stepping from the shadows appears a man dressed in robes so fancy they look like a priest's. The silver-haired man with a smug grin asks if I came to see his younger brother, causing me to freeze in shock as I realize I've actually stumbled into the older sibling's domain. Aster stares down at the academy, but his mind wanders off to a strange and random theory about mages he's made up. See, he thinks that every mage who spends their life studying gets cursed by the pen they use. First, their hair ends in a mess because they keep pulling it out in fits of research-fueled rage. Soon, the weeds finally give up and stop coming back. And that is when the real fun starts, my friends. The first trick they play is denial, so they pull their robes over their heads to hide their shiny new bald spot. Now comes the second step, acceptance, where they stop hiding their bald spot and let the whole world see it shining proudly. Then they hit stage 3, where they shave it all off to join the bald life of the One Punch Man, and let's go. And finally, we hit stage 4. A desperate last-ditch attempt to invent magic that makes hair grow back. But so far, no one has cracked the code. But this guy is completely different, starting with a super smooth apology that is totally fake. He thought Aster was just a rude kid, but a guest of the young master couldn't possibly be so unrefined. Deep down, he thinks Aster is incredible for his age, but he can't help calling him a fake two-faced slime. He introduces himself as the current vice dean, offers our boy a drink, and officially starts the mind games. Aster takes a sip of his tea, realizing that this young vice dean can't just be a spoiled noble's child, but must have real skill to prove himself. The vice dean noticed something strange about Aster, because unlike the other wealthy kids he usually meets, this one was truly different. Aster just plays it cool and laughs it off, and the vice dean seems to really like that, finding his calm attitude strangely easy to get along with. Then he congratulates Aster on joining Xenon Academy, casually dropping that he's an alumnus, the classic move of a senior showing off. And just like that, Aster's happy mood disappears, leaving her wondering why he suddenly mentioned their school days when it feels so suspicious. The vice dean just laughs it off, saying he's excited, then leans in to ask if we can get to the main point. And then he drops a question that completely catches everyone off guard. Would you put your life on the line just for a friend? Aster gets thrown off, thinking, what kind of question is that to ask someone you just met? Then, in a shocking twist, the Vice Dean reveals a glowing book and demands that Aster risk his life to get it. Aster's eyes went wide the instant he recognized it. That hidden secret of the Blander family is a special guide to healing light. While the Blander family's lady boss enjoys a quiet day just hanging out in her garden. She felt a wave of relief as she thought about how easy it was to get Damien into the academy. All thanks to Aster. She's convinced Aster makes a great friend for her son. And while he can be a real jerk, she figures that's just boys being boys. What she loves most is that even after learning Damien was a noble, Aster never changed, refusing to suck up or flatter him. She believes that very quality is what makes him special, but it also makes him dangerous. He's like a wild bird that will never stay trapped in a cage. So she decides she must find a way to keep him close, because for Damien's sake, she can't afford to lose a talent like him. Yikes. Back in the room, Aster stares at the legendary book, knowing that this ultimate prize is a trap. And as he watches the Vice Dean's bright but soulless eyes, the whole scene feels deeply creepy. It's as if the guy is wearing a face so long he has forgotten what his real one even looks like. The Vice Dean warns him not to answer rashly, but Aster just grins and says, I'll answer. Now that he knows the rules, he feels relaxed and looks the Vice Dean right in the eye to show they're in this together. He leans back with crossed arms to take charge and declares, if I can do it, I will. If not, then I won't. The Vice Dean's smile fades, and he leans in to warn that Aster could die if he listens to the request and then turns it down. But Aster just stares him down with a deadpan laugh saying, just kill me. We only live once, right? Of course, he's just thinking, but it'll be my second time, so I get to use that cool reincarnation trick again. Suddenly, the Vice Dean's power explodes in a flash of purple light, filling the room with crushing pressure. Even as he channels his terrifying strength, he calmly pours a glowing red liquid into a teacup, all while acting like it's just a normal Tuesday. Through it all, Aster stands rock solid with his arms crossed and zero fear in sight, earning the title What a Chad, which instantly melts the Vice Dean's icy pressure and brings his charming grin right back. Goodness, he chuckles. Young Master Aster, you have passed the test. He finally puts his formal act aside and admits he needs someone he can truly trust, even if they aren't part of the Blander family. Aster sits there sweating, wondering what this guy's real plan is. The Vice Dean admits he once thought Aster was just a rough kid from the slums that Damon had brought home. But when the scary madam started paying extra attention to a poor kid, he realized her story must have more than just fear. And just as luck would have it, a perfect chance dropped right into his lap the moment he met Damon. He brings up the fight between his brother and Aster, tells him to pick a speaking style right now, and when Aster agrees, the Vice Dean smiles because the perfect excuse has just appeared. The big brother grins smugly, saying it makes perfect sense that he had to call in the younger brother and the guest after they had a little fight. Aster isn't buying the story and wonders why the Vice Dean of a magic academy would need such a weak excuse. The Vice Dean admitted he couldn't jump in himself before finally dropping the real truth. The Devon family is keeping a close watch on me. The name Devalin definitely sticks in your mind. The Vice Dean tells us he's been digging into their heavenly magic and thinks he just found something amazing. He claims he found a secret book meant only for a Devalin to read. Aster's mind is spinning in disbelief that this guy is still breathing. The Vice Dean confesses that he first learned Devalin magic only to find a way to wipe it all out for his family's safety. But then he spotted it, the true source of all magic and the developer's ultimate secret. He found a way to go beyond perfection, his face twisting into a wild grin as he shouted, I can't stop. You get my feeling, right, young Master Aster? Aster stares in shock, realizing this guy isn't just a bit weird but absolutely bonkers. This guy isn't just a bit strange. He's a completely crazy wizard brewing forbidden spells in his family's basement. A sudden flash from his past reveals that the entire Blando family was wiped out because of Henz's dangerous research into a new source of art. Pahern, the leader of the Deal clan, bet his entire future on smashing the Blandos just to claim that magic for himself. Right from the start, that scumbag knew exactly how weak this new power really was. You got it right, folks. This forbidden magic is the very same power that killed him before, a terrifying image flashing through his mind. The Vice's voice cuts through his PTSD haze, whispering just one name, Aster. Aster acts like nothing's wrong, hiding his pain until he suddenly snaps, asking why you came looking for him. The Vice Dean finally admits he was hiding his world-ending research from his family, and now that a spy has slipped into his lab, he's completely lost and can't find them. Aster raises an eyebrow, wondering why you'd suspect anyone but the obvious choice, like your own secretary. The Vice Dean calmly sips his tea, But it's likely not that simple. Things are a little more complicated than they seem. Aster rushes past him, already cracking the code and realizing the fake formula was just a trap, while the vice dean just laughs because nobody wants to die. Aster asks why we can't just join Declan. Noting that while they'd welcome us, the vice dean only smiles, and after saying he has his reasons, he quietly tasks you with a secret favor since you're the family outcast, claiming his side of their joint research is falling apart. Aster's wrist snaps with a dramatic flick, sending a pile of papers flying through the air until they land right in her hand. I'll make sure you're well rewarded, so take this thesis to Professor Forwin at Zen Academy, and in return for this little delivery job, I'll give you the light of healing technique. Aster is absolutely shocked by the Blando family's ridiculous secret mailman super move. A slow, greedy grin spreads across his face as he realizes this is finally his moment. Aster nods and the deal is done, but our hero isn't finished cooking yet. With a cunning smile, he raises the stakes and reminds me that I only become a true partner once you finish the new Heaven Source art. The Vice Dean is completely shocked by this man's boldness, but Aster isn't backing down and demands he just say yes or no, or she'll walk away. The Vice Dean sighed, then offered a relieved smile and promised to hand over the finished new Heaven Source art later. However, he adds with a serious look that he has a condition of his own too. Once I finish my thesis, I'll need your help, Aster, since partners should be able to do that much for each other, right? Aster grins and grabs the papers, saying he's happy to help with the thesis, then deadpans that he can't read, leaving the Vice Dean frozen in shock before Aster breaks the joke, only to be told he's shameless and unfunny. But then Aster asks about trusting Professor Fun, prompting the Vice Dean to laugh and reveal their old academy rivalry where he was always the superior one. He asked her, and internally, he face-palmed in pure disbelief. The world is coming to an end, and another crazy person has joined the academy. That night, back in his room, Aster discovers a big subspace pouch and a huge pile of books waiting just for him. He handed me a subspace pouch to keep us hidden, but I can't help but wonder why he packed so much. He finds a fancy letter sealed with wax hidden among the books and pops it open. It's all for my dear friend Aster, who just scoffs, and I say, "Dear my butt." The letter says that Vice Dean Henzi carefully chose a bunch of essential grimmers for him and even set out the specific order to learn them in. Aster clutches the letter and has to admit it's a really nice gift. He studies the books and the detailed plan to build a full magic curriculum from basic to advanced, realizing that Hensi is both a genius and a complete lunatic. He nods with a grin and says, "That's good." He drops everything and dives straight into his work at the desk. He begins his Magic Tower's list of book sponsors with Hensi von Blando's name at the very top, celebrating these 132 volumes as a massive gift while planning to sweet-talk Damon later to bring the healing light of the grimoire into the tower as well. He imagines Damon happily petting a cat that's yelling "friend," which is exactly what people call friend privilege. He then realizes these books aren't just random pages, but form one perfectly organized magic system. With this course, anyone eager to learn magic can build a rock-solid foundation. A huge grin spreads across his face, because before he was just storing books, but now that's all changed. This new collection will give the tower a fresh purpose. It won't just be a quiet library, but a school that shares its knowledge with anyone who asks. Hensi gazes out the window, replaying his brief chat with Aster, where he planned to treat the boy like a disposable delivery service to be discarded once he was no longer needed. Now Aster is a fascinating character, a slow, calculating smile spreading across his face while Hensi remembers his own threats, leaving him staring at that boy who seems completely unshaken and truly something special. He chuckled quietly to himself, realizing the danger was just a test, even though he could have easily ended the man's life without any excuse. But it was the way Aster looked at him that made him realize the kid wasn't just talking. He truly didn't care if he died. Hensi is fascinated because this pig feels different from all the others. A slow, calculating grin spreads across his face as he spots a partner who truly wants to use his crazy research. Only one thing still bothers him, though surely he knows how to read, right? As the morning sun rises, Aster steps into his family's Grand Blando home to get ready for his big first day at the academy. Alfred shouts, "Lord Aster, it's time to go." And with a steady face, Aster grabs his suitcase, ready to make his big debut. Lance, the maid, walks him down the hall and tells him that he and the young lord don't have to take the entrance exam. She turns to give him a small smile, telling him he looks like a proper academy student now and that it suits him perfectly. Aster gives a rare, tiny smile back and says, "Thank you." The comfort of having a wealthy family sponsor him, and he doesn't mind at all skipping the exam. Suddenly a familiar voice shouts, "Friend, now we know who that is." And sure enough, it's Damien waving excitedly from the mansion's front door with his mother standing elegantly beside him. As Damien jumps into the carriage, the madam waves goodbye to Aster and says, I truly hope you get everything you need. Aster looks right back at her with a bold, confident smile. Sitting in the moving carriage, he thinks about her words, the results he wants, and the plan that is already set. He is heading to Zenyang, the most famous and respected school on the whole continent. He plans to claim every wealthy backer waiting for him in that place as his very own. Leaning against the carriage window, he mutters to his fellow travelers, "Hold on, everyone. I'm almost here." So Aster dives straight into the study books Hensei handed him as he makes his grand entry into Zenon. He has to admit that, for someone he just met, Hensei is surprisingly sharp. The magic rules are easy to learn, but the wild things you can do with them will blow your mind. He ponders the water, which for many people is the essence of life itself. To some, it's a terrifying natural disaster, but it all comes down to how you see the world, you know? After turning through page after page, Aster finally realizes that Hensei's lessons aren't just about teaching. They're a secret test to find the one person ready to take up his family's forbidden martial art. Suddenly, his train of thought gets derailed by Damien, who is practically bouncing off the walls and shouting, "Friend, we're here. Look." Aster peers out the window and spots Zenyen Academy standing there in all its glory. But their ride stops right here because Lankensy declares the party is done. She says that on the very first day, everyone walks because it is the Academy's rule to check your humility, no matter how wealthy your parents are. As they step outside, Damon waves goodbye with the easy smile of someone who thinks he's just leaving summer camp. Then he snatches up Aster and drags him forward in a panic. "We need to move fast because if we're late for the ceremony, there won't be any seats left." Aster throws her hands up and shouts, "Dude, what are you even talking about?" While Damon just laughs, totally clueless. He realizes this isn't some back-alley improv show with assigned seats because Lance totally played him, spinning a lie just to get his lazy but moving. Knowing he can't win the fight, he lets his messy friend pull him up the stairs. The hall is already full of students rushing to find their seats. Damien is totally shocked by all these people. He whispered that they just barely made it, but Aster facepalmed because the secondhand embarrassment was too much. Aster begins hunting down the real seats meant for them. Damien is freaking out that every seat is already gone, but Aster just tells him to calm down. He can't stop wondering why this guy is suddenly so pumped up when he didn't even want to come here in the first place. Just as Q arrives, Damon trips right over his own feet. He looks up to see a silver-haired upperman who looks like he's auditioning to be the school's top bully. Aster dashes over, only for Damon to shake his head and insist he's perfectly okay. He waves to the man with a friendly smile and admits it was his fault for not watching where he was going. But as they try to run away, the upperman yells at them to stop. "You what just landed on my clothes?" Aster, looking so incredibly unimpressed he'd win a prize for his deadpan stare, knows exactly what Damien's silly brain is about to do. There it is. Damien licks his finger to wipe the man's sleeve, and honestly, what's going on with him? The noble's face flickers through dozens of angry expressions as Damon proudly declares he'll make it sparkle. Oh yeah, they're absolutely ready to fight it out. Just as the bully's fist is about to land, another hand shoots out to stop him cold with a loud smack. Aster glares at the bully and says, "I think you're making a mistake. How about we just stop now?" The bully sneers down at him. "And who are you supposed to be?" Aster calmly replies, "I'm his friend." Damon peeks out, echoing, "His friend. Adorable." The bully growls, refusing to let go, while a loyal friend mutters, "You're going to regret that choice today," leaving Aster to sigh as their peaceful first day at school is already ruined. He gives his neck a quick crack, pushes his glasses up, and gets ready to teach with his own two hands. Of course, a fight on the very first day pulls in a huge crowd. People know the big guy is from the Dolan family, but no one has any idea who our boys are. As soon as the crowd learns a new student might be a monster, they instantly start wagering on Dolan Fee. Suddenly, a random person in the crowd starts cheering everyone on, asking, "Are you guys serious? A fight is about to break out and you're just standing there watching." He points his finger dramatically and steps back to give them room to fight. Then he began barking orders at everyone, shouting for a mage to raise a protective wall. And just like that, a few students begin casting spells to build a glowing green fighting arena right in the middle of the hall. The crowd went absolutely wild right away, and the betting started immediately, showing just how much the school cares. The guy who planned this is beaming with pride at the mess he just made. Inside the ring, the bully cracks his knuckles while I stand there, Hickster, the second son of the proud Dolan Fee family. Suddenly, a purple glow bursts around him while he insists on knowing your name. Aster casually fixes his tie, reminding you that he's just an ordinary person passing by, not from a fancy family like you. Hickster laughs it off, shrugs, and kindly lets Aster go first. Step forward with a wicked grin on our hero's face, because this is going to be fun. He loosens his tie and mocks the other guy, calling him out on talking too much when he hates it, then asks if he's scared. Hickster is so mad he lets out a roar of pure rage. He slams his foot into the ground and charges forward, throwing a massive punch straight at Aster's confident face. His glowing red fist rockets through the air, only to freeze in mid-strike as Aster calmly explains, "You're not fighting one enemy right now, you're fighting two." Before Hickster can even move, a sudden splash of blood hits his face with a wet thwack. Aster closed the gap instantly and punched him in the ribs with a blast of magic, and that was the end of the fight. He stumbles backward, totally rattled. He wonders in shock. What? How could that punch be so heavy? While Aster just stands there, his fist buzzing with blue energy and looking like a real danger to everyone around. Just as Hickster felt pain from his broken rib, a warm light wrapped around him and healed him, making him wonder if that was magic. He raises his head just in time to see his rival casting a spell, leaving him wondering why he'd ever heal the very person they're trying to knock out. It's Aster's buddy Damien, happily bandaging up the guy his friend just knocked out. What a real troll. Hickster's mind just goes blank, and he has no clue what's going on. Seeing his opponent distracted, Aster jumps in for the second round and unleashes a fast flurry of punches that Hickster just barely blocks. Aster grins with pure joy, even praising the other guy's solid defense. Just like clockwork, Damien shows up again, laughing so hard he can't stop, and throws another heal your way, which feels downright disrespectful. And that's how the endless combo starts, with Aster landing a punch and Damien filling his health bar up, as they treat this fight like a video game while Hickster completely loses his mind, preferring to get knocked out rather than give up his pride. The punch and heal mix is pushing him to the brink. He's stumbling and dripping with sweat while terror fills his eyes. But the crowd loves seeing Hickster get beaten, cheering wildly and shouting, "Don't hold back," until they are calling him the star of the Eastern continent and the hope of the warriors. "Trusting only me." One guy shouts for me to end it fast while another screams that peer pressure is real. But Hickster, caught up in the excitement and cheers from his new fans, just grits his teeth. He finally loses his cool and yells, "How dare you, you little trickster!" But oh boy, he just says the wrong thing and gets punched right back. Classic. Aster looks down at him with no respect and says, "Not bad, but the disrespect is unreal," which makes Hickster so angry that he screams, "Don't underestimate me," and charges up his magic-powered super punch. As his fist strikes, a huge shockwave blasts through the room, and suddenly the fight is really heating up. His fans go absolutely wild, and there it is, our Hickster at last. Hickster feels a solid thump, thinks he's won, but then wonders why his fist hit something as hard as a steel wall. Even though Aster was sent flying, my guy is totally fine. He swings through the air like a champion gymnast, lands without a single wobble, and then casually fixes his tie, looking not a bit the worse for wear. Hickster just stands there, frozen as his confidence crumbles into a million pieces right before your eyes. Then pure rage takes over, and he charges forward like a bull once more. Damien keeps healing the guy while Aster stays huge, but Damien knows he must land one final, crushing hit to end this fight. Meanwhile, Damon is just chilling and tossing out heals as if he's trying to win the Support of the Year award. All right, playtime is over. So Aster grabs a special trick he learned with his old friends and gets ready to use it. His eyes flare with a fierce, glowing light that means he's completely locked in. It's not fighting or magic, it's just pure physics, baby, pulling power from particles smashing together. He calls it the collision style, and boom, that's how it goes. The crash sends a huge shockwave ripping right through the crowd. Even Damien gets pushed back hard, looking totally stunned. Just as the dust clears, Hickster gets whizzed across the room. He fell to the floor out cold, and the fight was done. The whole hall goes quiet as everyone stares in shock. Aster slowly lifts his lone victorious fist into the air, shouting one cheer. He's waiting for a reaction, and wow, he definitely gets one. The crowd goes wild, finally realizing he wasn't just fighting back but actually taking control in an amazing display. He spins around to face his new fans, gives Damon a triumphant pat on the head, and knows the mission is done. A tiny smile crept onto Aster's face. Everything is falling into place just like we wanted. Not everyone is impressed, as one guy in the crowd looks on with a smug grin, calling the fight truly vulgar. Suddenly, a bunch of stern-looking students shove their way through the crowd. It's the hall monitors. Their angry leader starts fighting and screaming right on the very first day of the entrance ceremony. He pushes for answers, making Aster sweat as she realizes she may have pushed too hard. But she stays calm because this is exactly what she does as a professional troubleshooter. Before anyone could blame someone else, Damon holds up his hand and admits, "It was us, right here," leaving Aster with his eyes closed, completely unsure how to feel about his friend anymore. Meanwhile, Hickster is lying on the ground, knocked out cold, which was a perfectly clean hit. So, after boasting about the fight, our guys got dragged into the head prefect's office for a talk. The head prefect sat them down, likely expecting them to deny everything for a long time. But to everyone's surprise, he lets them go because the other kid wasn't really hurt, proving there's no real security policy in place. He gives them the classic, "I've got my eye on you" speech. Yeah, we've heard that one before, buddy. Finally free, they dash toward the main hall to take part in the big entrance ceremony. Aster is so glad they got there before the long, boring speeches began. Their tiny fight made them famous overnight, gossip spreading fast as Damien waves to his new fans, while Aster is completely fed up with him. A friend set aside some seats for them. The ceremony starts with a speech from a headmaster who looks like he's 200 years old and talks on and on until you'd rather be asleep, even more than if he had chugged an energy drink. Damon completely passes out right beside Aster, giving at least one of them a chance to catch some rest. He shakes his friend awake to stop him from drooling, since he can't let his new fans see him looking this messy. Suddenly, an assistant dashes in and leans close to the old man to share a pressing secret. The headmaster quickly apologized, said he had to leave for something urgent, and walked out, leaving us to wonder if he forgot to turn off the stove. Suddenly, a scary woman with long red hair charges onto the stage, looking far from happy. She bellows loudly, catching everyone in the room off guard. Yep, she woke Damon up. JRA introduces herself and then instantly calls the Magic Division representative. The crowd went wild as Dahlia Denai, a mage from a powerful family, made her entrance. Aster spots her instantly, knowing the Dai family are second only to the Dealins, his mortal enemies. He remembered her from a past life as a powerful mage they had once teamed up with, though they were more like deadly rivals who secretly wished they could strangle each other. It was a pleasant sight to see that familiar face again, someone we all know can take a friendly hit. Next, a boy named Paul steps forward to represent the martial arts team. Aster scribbles a note, realizing there is no family name for this commoner, which means the nobles watching must be absolutely furious. Now that the oath is finished, it's time to bring the professors to the front. As the professor was introduced, Aster suddenly felt a strange chill and realized Dahlia was staring straight at him. Then she trips right away and stuffs the whole thing into her mouth as she tumbles down the stairs. Well, that was certainly not a dramatic entrance at all. Aster skips the boring comedy act and waits for his professor, Farron, until a man with long brown hair finally steps up to say, "Greetings, I am Professor Forwin and I will teach you Megology," which makes Aster finally feel like the show is getting somewhere. Aster is completely confused because this man doesn't look like the crazy Weisstein Henze at all. He knows better than to trust a friendly smile, especially from someone crazy, so he keeps his guard up. And with that, the world's longest entrance ceremony finally ends, sending the students off to their dorms. Aster gives Damon a gentle shake. "Time to open your eyes, sleeping beauty, for the adventure begins now." As a top-tier friend, Aster deadpans and reveals that you were caught sleeping and expelled. Damien's spirit actually floats right out of his body. That quiet, silent scream is truly priceless. Later, as Aster walked through the ridiculously fancy halls still chuckling to himself, he knew Damien had completely fallen for it. He climbs to the top floor to find his room, because the main character always gets the best penthouse suite. He has to admit, the room looks pretty awesome. There were 2 beds and 2 matching boxes of supplies. Everyone starts on the same level, but you can already picture those rich kids showing off their shiny new toothbrushes by the second week. Just as he turns away from the closet, he freezes instantly. Bam! The roommate he found out about wasn't the person he thought it would be. Here is Paul, the guest representative from the ceremony, and my guy looks seriously annoyed to be here. Paul doesn't bother saying hello. He just strides in and immediately starts handing out orders. His only rule is simple. They will never get involved in each other's lives again, which means no more talking. He stares angrily at Aster and demands an answer, and now this semester is definitely going to be a lot of fun. Aster scoffs at Paul in his head, wondering if the top student really is as good as everyone says. In the blink of an eye, Paul pulls out his sword and charges ahead. Paul screams, "What do you think you're pulling?" While Aster, totally unfazed and secretly impressed, nods and says, "Not bad," noting the perfect form of a draw so clean it makes no sound at all. Just as the fierce fight was reaching its peak, a knock and a cheerful voice called out, "Friend, hurry up and come out," which saved Aster from further trouble. So he just smiled knowingly, brushed Paul aside, and walked out with a sly grin. He says do whatever you want, but warns not to complain if he sings until past midnight, and I agree. Outside, his friend Damon runs up to meet him, bursting with energy. Damon questions who his roommate is, but Aster responds with a flat, deadpan, "Don't know." When Damien presses for answers, Aster just coolly claims he was too busy to find out, which is such a blatant lie. Damon, who has no idea what's going on, suggests they take a tour of the academy because Lancey said it's great for new students, while Aster stares out at the huge campus and remembers how easy it is to get lost there. He fixes his gaze on the central plaza and gives his agreement. It would be smart to get your bearings in this place. In addition, he can sense something else out there, a faint disturbance gently brushing against his awareness. High up on the rooftops, hidden in a soft blue glow, figures are watching. He knows exactly who they are. Declin's troubleshooters, the goon squad, have finally arrived. Aster's face twists into a wicked grin as he thinks, let's go check out how many there are. And so the tour kicks off with Damien skipping happily along, totally in the dark. Damien is instantly stunned by the huge lake before him, shouting that they have nothing like this back home. Aster let out a long sigh, realizing he was stuck with babysitting duty and finally understanding why Lancey had pawned Damon off on him. Aster, being the petty guy he is, decides to have a little fun at Damon's expense by telling Damon and asking them to make one for you, leaving Damon looking completely confused. With a mischievous smile, Aster says, you just need to dig a hole and pour in some water. And my guy's eyes light up as he promises to get a lake even bigger than that one, and he actually did buy it. Meanwhile, over at Lance's spot, she's working harder than ever before. Back at the lake, Damon is already dreaming up a name for the masterpiece he plans to build. Aster picks the perfect name for all the hard work Lance has to do. Blood, sweat, and tears. Right then, Lance got a sudden shock of pure fear because his gut knew something was wrong, while Damon just happened to really like the name. Then he spots a statue and wants one. So Aster jokingly calls it Blood, Sweat, and Tears, but Damon has an even better idea. A gorgeous golden dragon, which is awesome. Poor Lancey shivers once more, baffled by the sudden, terrifying cold that grips her. After scaring everyone in Lancey from a safe distance, they finally turn around and head home. Walking along, Aster does a quick head count, guessing that the 7 spies he has seen mean there are probably 10 of them altogether. They must use Professor Farron's lab, which happens to be the second magic hall, as their headquarters. It all falls into place. Declan knows the Vice Dean has allies, so Professor Farron is the one everyone suspects. He spots one of them hiding in the bushes, proving they've arrived right on schedule. As the dark wraps around the academy, the troubleshooters start moving into action. They jump from roof to roof without a sound, all running toward one special goal. One agent steps into the shadowy room to find his friend already waiting there. It turns out HQ sent an urgent order for everyone to meet at the target's nest. Tonight at midnight, they'll swap their main focus for a sub-target and deliver some juicy intel to it. The other agent nods, showing he finally gets it. With Hensey making his move, they know Professor Farron is the one they must watch. One of the agents begins to panic and wonders if we're supposed to charge past the monster professors all on our own. His boss told him in a cold voice that none of the elite agents are coming to help, and he muttered, darn it, but they aren't completely alone. The team's leader introduces their fiery new ally, a creature of flame named Callahan, who is ready to fight alongside them. The other agent is stunned to hear that we are talking about the vice leader of the Magic Corps, the infamous Red Jewel. Then the poor guy starts sobbing because he knows Callahan is a heartless monster who will sacrifice them all like cannon fodder. The young agent is shaking so hard with fear, and they are asking us to throw our lives away for this. His boss tries to cool him off, reminding him this is a quiet sneak attack, not a messy fight. Besides, letting a famous noble mage get caught would hurt them too, so they decided to leave right away. They shoot into the sky, knowing they must get back together quickly or they will all be lost. But their quick dash across the night isn't going unnoticed, because someone is watching from the balcony above. It's Aster, who knows exactly what's going on, and with that midnight thought, he considers this recap officially done.